For number 1, you want to find basically when you plug in 6 for x, what is the output? So when we plug 6 in for x right here, you get negative 6 over 2, which that reduces to negative 3. Now, negative 3 power, if you look from here to the black, why did I switch a negative power to a positive power? Well, you can do that if you switch what you're powering. It went from 1/5 to 5 over 1. Because the negative power flips what you're powering and changes the value of the power, changes it to a positive. So now we have a positive power which we can calculate after we switched the 1/5 to a 5 over 1. Then we did 5 over 1 is 5, 5 to the third is 125, and then we simply went 2 times 125, which is 250, minus 1, 249. So probably the tricky part is this negative power. Negative powers flip what you're powering, and then you make them positive. And then you got to just follow order of operations. Okay. The whole point of plugging values in is so you can make graphs like this. Now, for number 2, you want the equation. Now, this is the formula for the equation. A is your initial value. B is your rate, or basically known as your growth or decay factor. Now, for this one, this is a growth. It's growing. So we know our B value should be greater than 1. If it was decaying, it would look like this, it would be less than 1. And A, again, is your initial value, also known as your y-intercept. So if you look at this graph, if you look at these numbers, which it kind of be hard to see, but these goes by 2's. They're going by 2's, and I'm halfway between 2 and 0. Wouldn't that be probably 1? Good approximation would be 1. So my initial value is 1. Again, at 0, I have a height of 1. So that's my initial value. Then, to find your B value, which is your rate or your growth factor, what you do is you simply take the number one step over, which at 1, hopefully you notice between 4 and 2, that value would probably be 3. You take the value 3, so this is the value of 3, this is the value of 1, this is the value of 9. And what you notice is, from 1 to 3, did you notice you multiply by 3? From 3 to 9, do you notice again you multiply by 3? So for that trend, what you'll notice is you're going to be a growth factor of 3 because you're multiplying the previous number by 3 to get to the next number. The way I do it mathematically is I simply take this number, 3, divide by this number, 1. Or I take this number, 9, divide by this number, 3. And I'll get my growth factor of 3. And then you simply plug it in. A is 1, B is 3. There's your equation. Now you don't need the 1, so you could also write it just like this. This one is, these two problems are very similar. Could I, from this graph, make a table like this? Yeah. Could I also, from this table, make a graph like this? Yeah. They're very similar. This one talks about bacteria culture. It's decaying. It's shrinking. As you can tell, they're shrinking values. Y is how many bacteria are present. T is the time. Here it looks like days. Now, that should actually, right here, this should technically be a T. I just noticed that. So let's change that to a T. If you notice, for the value, see right here, A is your initial value, B is your growth or decay factor. Now this one's decaying, as it said. It's shrinking. So your B value is going to be a value less than 1, a fraction. Your A value is your initial value. Well, at 0 days, isn't 0 days your initial value? Meaning you started with. So when they looked at this particular amount of bacteria in this petri dish or whatever, they have 1,200 of them. And it's decaying, so it's dying away or something. And after 1 day, it was down to 300. After 2 days, it was down to 75. So your initial value is 1,200. See right there, your A. And your rate, well, if you notice, isn't this decaying by a fourth? Did you divide this by 4 to get here? Divide this by 4 to get here. So do you see, if you take the 300 divide by this, do you see how you get 1/4? Divide by 4 is the same as multiplying by 1/4. Same concept. So the 1/4 is your rate, is your decay factor. Again, it's less than 1. Decays are less than 1. Growths are greater than 1. And all you do is you look at How did I get from here to here? Well, I divided by 4. That would be 1/4. For this, how did I get from here to here? I multiplied by 3. That'd be 3. Very similar problems. This is more of a word problem, but it's very similar.